tonight on Dr. Phil Primetime. The fastest rising group placing bets, college students.
In one 12-hour sitting, I created enough debt for myself that it took me 6 months working 70 hours a week to pay it off.
You bet on the color of Gatorade at the Super Bowl?
I did.
Did you win?
I did not.
It's time to quit.
I asked my sponsor at one point, I said, what is the most painless way to commit suicide?
It's not the dough, it's the dopamine.
Thank you very much. Well, Drake and Ashton have done it. So have Ben Affleck and Pamela Anderson. In fact, by 2028, it's estimated that 243 million worldwide do it, to the tune of $138 billion. What am I talking about? Gambling, sports betting, much of it online, and the fastest rising group placing bets, college students. From dorm rooms and lecture halls to cafeterias and stadiums, students are playing the odds, hoping Lady Luck shines on them. In fact, 1 in 3 students gamble online, and 26% of those students believe they have a gambling addiction or at least a problem. Now, Saul says he started gambling online in high school when he was 15 years old. He says it wasn't long before he had bookies chasing him for payment.
I first started gambling online when I was in high school. I was 15, and I found this online casino app on Facebook. I'd stay up late at night on my iPad under the covers playing roulette. When everyone else in the house was asleep, I felt a little bit of a rush from it. I even started scamming people in the app to get more virtual currency. I was 15 years old. Here I was collecting thousands of dollars from defrauding these older people. From there, my first real taste of putting in any money on gambling, I put in a quarter and won $35. What I won was like a tank of gas, but to me, it was like I won $1 million. Felt like I was smarter than everyone, and I felt like this big shot. At this point, I was already thinking of how far can I take this. My junior year of college, when I was gambling heavy, I won just about $2,000 cash mailed to me. I went to one of my classes. I flashed all that money out on my desk to show off to everyone. I thought everyone was gonna bow down to me, but it seemed concerning to people. Hey, what is wrong with this guy? When it was getting to where I couldn't pay my gambling debts, I was borrowing money from my parents. It was really traumatic for them because they were losing sleep, worrying about my safety, worrying about how I'm ever gonna get out of this, worrying about my future. Here I was just crippled by this addiction. Nowadays, you don't have to go to the casino. The casino's right there in your pocket on your cell phone.
Before I start with Saul, let me just ask the audience, by a show of hands, how many of you have placed a sports bet within the last year? Raise your hand. Raise it real high. Okay, now let's include the lottery. Raise your hand. Okay, the rest of you lie like rugs. I'm not saying you're gamblers. I'm just saying you're gamblers. You do know the lottery's gambling, right? You started gambling when you were 15.
15 years old, I was playing an online casino just on my computer, on my iPad. And this game that I was doing was accessible through a bunch of fake emails. I wasn't 18. I wasn't pretending to be something. It was just so easy. Just got right on there.
And did your parents know?
They did not. They did not know that I was involved in it.
What was the biggest bet you made at any one time?
Well, so the biggest bet I ever made was in college. I'd say about $3,500. I was betting live on tennis. This is the thing. It wasn't a full normal baseball game. It was European tennis, an individual game, not the whole.
Because you're really into European tennis, right?
I actually did become a pretty big tennis fan, but not naturally. It evolved because of my gambling.
Because of the gambling,
Yeah.
right? Did you have a real interest in Ugandan women's basketball?
I still, and I guess
You
I
were
can't
betting
say-
on that, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I was wagering on that as
And
well.
you had absolutely no idea who was playing or what. You were just betting on it because it was something to bet on.
Well, that's the thing. I don't even know if it actually existed. It was just numbers loading on a web page, and it was telling me if I won or lost. There was no stream to actually watch the game.
So they could have just been saying, hey, bet this money, and then they could have just, oh, sorry, you lost.
Well,
take the money and run.
It was happening apparently in India. There were some guys scamming these Russian gamblers by making a fake cricket league they were recording on some iPhones, and guys were losing their money over COVID betting on it. So it's out there, Dr. Phil.
No.
It's out there. It's out there.
Somebody
It's out
was
there.
scamming the money by not really having a game and having you
It
bet
was
on
just
it?
some guys setting up a picnic pretending it was a real cricket league, and guys were betting on it. They had nothing else to bet on. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me the experience you get when you bet, because it wasn't the money, right? There was more to it than that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
You
glad,
got to rush.
Yeah, well, initially, I mean, I was looking at it as just an extension of fantasy sports, which I'd done before, and I thought this was a way to add money to it, gain some income. But then I felt like some big shot. I felt like some CEO, and I felt like all my friends from high school were already getting involved in parties and the college life. I didn't really experience that yet, and I thought gambling was really my thing. It gave me the sense of identity, and I felt like some big mob character while doing it. So I really, really was diving deep into it.
I love the fact that you're insightful enough and honest enough to recognize the payoff you were getting from it. What's the biggest amount of debt you got in?
Well, in total, I'd say I've said it 20 to 25K. I mean, I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but it was
More than you had.
It's more than I had, and it was through so many different avenues. It was, owing my parents money, owing a bunch of different bookies money, owing money to these predatory online loans. And this is nothing. I mean, think, Dr. Phil, I was off in college studying to make it in the world. It wasn't something that was ever the plan for me to go down any sort of trajectory like this.
Just so you know what you were contributing to, in 2022, Americans spent $80 billion, $80 billion with a B, dollars on sports betting. Since 2018, there's been $180.2 billion legally wagered. Now, Saul says gambling was fun until the bookies started chasing him for payment. We'll ask him what kind of high that was when we come back.
I asked my sponsor at one point, I said, what is the most painless way to commit suicide? Because I was just so distraught over the chaos in my life.
Over how much money?
20 grand. I didn't know you could bet on tennis, bet on darts. By the time all was said and done with my gambling, I went through at least 10 bookies. Eventually, I didn't have the money to finance my gambling, and I was relying on joining new bookies' websites, so I was gambling on credit. When the bookies were contacting people I knew, it really did scare me. But I also thought that the way out of it would be to gamble more, win the money back, and be able to pay them off. I don't really know where it crossed the line to being an addiction. I'm just like, this is physically painful.
So when you were dealing with these online bookies, they were fronting you the bet? You didn't have to put the money up?
It was done in a way where a bookie agent, whoever, they would create an account for me through a web platform and load a credit line. So it would say you have 500 credit to gamble on. And at the end of the week, it was sort of like a handshake deal. At the end of the week, if you're down, you, the player, are obligated to send the money through a money transfer.
They'd front the money, which made it really easy. You didn't even have to put up any money.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's online. I mean, look, I'm not here to make all these excuses and say that people were forcing me to do any of this behavior, but I will say it was incredibly easy, and it looks like monopoly money when you're dealing online, and it's just a number. You're not physically sorting out any currency.
I have to say, you've been very transparent about it, and you've owned this whole thing, but I do want to point out they do make it easy for you. The problem is, when this is easy for people at this young age, your brain's not through growing yet. And the part of your brain that grows last is the neocortex. And that's the part where you have the executive functions like impulse control and foresight. the ability to predict the consequences of your action, the ability to say, you know, if I bet this and lose, there's going to be somebody around wanting the money. And last time I looked in my pocket, I didn't have any. So this could go south on me. The ability to predict that consequence is not well developed in somebody young. And males in particular have testosterone flowing through their veins. And so they kind of think you're bulletproof, this will work out. You don't have good impulse control. And so you have a tendency to be high risk taker. So they exploit this. I'm telling you, this is no accident that they're targeting you. And ads have an impact, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it is inescapable now to see the advertising. And I think that this next generation really don't have a shot at a healthy, normal relationship towards sports unless they actively seek that. I mean, the default is to become involved in this sort of gambling behavior. And it's a social activity too. It's just something that you can do with your buddies. So it comes across as pretty innocent.
Saul made a 2-hour and 20-minute drive from his apartment to a casino with $400 cash, and you lost it all in a matter of minutes, right?
Yeah, I made sure to time it when my loved ones and friends were asleep so they wouldn't track my phone. It was like 1 a.m. Drove from my dorm 2.5 hours with the $400 cash I had left. And I remember I went up $40 and I thought, well, such a long drive. I mean, that might cover my gas, but I'm here to do a little more than that. So I stayed on the machines and lost it within 20 minutes. And man, I mean, it's tough. You have to drive home and then go to class like in a few hours, you know.
Now, this is while you were working to stop gambling.
Oh, yeah. At this point, I'd been familiar with the 12-step program, and I'd been going to some meetings, yeah.
And you text your sponsor with an interesting question. What did you ask your sponsor?
Yeah, I asked my sponsor at one point, I said, what is the most painless way to commit suicide? I asked him that.
Yeah.
I asked him that because I was just so distraught over the chaos in my life. It was just overwhelming to the point where I anticipated how bad the next day was going to be. I mean, who wants to wake up knowing it's going to be like that?
And so you thought it's better to just kill yourself?
I thought that was the most rational thought I'd had was, well, let me pro-con this out. If I continue living, this is what it's looking like.
So you did the Ben Franklin T, did a pro and con, and it turned out that the best option was to kill yourself?
That's what I thought.
Over how much money?
20 grand.
And what'd your sponsor tell you?
He had a very astute response. He said, well, they all hurt the same. They all kill you. They all remove your chance to fix this. So I suggest you get to work, you know.
So that was a short-term solution.
Right. Right. I mean, the thing is, just stopping gambling, I even found, was not the full solution either. There's plenty of unhappy, poorly adjusted people who have never gambled once. So it was more than that even. Yeah,
of course. So you say July 2019 was your last bet?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's been over 4 years now. Thanks. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And you're still paying off the debt?
I'm still paying them. And people have told me why do it. And I say, you know, I need to make good on that to feel that I'm back in good standing.
How much do you owe now?
About $6 grand, I'd say.
And how are you paying it off? What are you doing?
I'm actually, you know, this is probably the best publicity I'll ever get. I do these speaking engagements at schools and conferences and do these webinars talking about gambling. And, you know, I've been getting more opportunities. It's really been a blessing to not only speak about gambling, but also be a young person who can connect with other young people just about how to cope and get adjusted.
Well, we're going to talk some more about this. We're going to have somebody to the conversation. A 25-year-old Georgetown University graduate who says he spent 6 to 8 hours a day gambling online in college. He even decided to study abroad in Australia to escape gambling, only to find himself in a casino 3 hours after landing. We'll talk to him after the break.
I created enough debt for myself 6 different times where I had to work numerous jobs, times when I was working 70 to 80 hours a week just to pay down those debts.
Did you know that in recent years, at least 8 U.S. universities signed deals with sports gambling companies? And some of these schools even allowed betting companies to advertise on campus and directly into students' inboxes. The reason I point that out is because that is the most susceptible that males in particular are to start gambling. I mean, like 14 to 21, 25, this is a real high-risk population. 59% say they start gambling while they're in college. 25% of them say they develop an addiction or at least an interfering problem. And universities have access to the same information and research that I do. In fact, they're probably generating the research. So we're going to sign up with gambling companies and have them putting ads directly into the inboxes of our student body. Here's our mailing list. Who's thinking for these people? Rob says he was in high school when he started gambling and has bet on everything from pro sports to ping pong.
I got started with gambling as soon as I was 18, and that very quickly spiraled. At that time, I was using a website that was operated out of the Caribbean. When I started my college career at Georgetown, I was still gambling. I didn't take a single day off. Gambling was everything that I did. It was always that nagging presence in the background. By the end of it, I was very emotionally numb. And even the wins wouldn't really do anything because they were expected. I see gambling on college campuses heading in a really negative direction because the younger that you start gambling, the more likely it is that you will develop a gambling problem. I was gambling for between 6 to 8 hours every single day. I created enough debt for myself 6 different times where I had to work 70 to 80 hours a week as a college student just to pay down those debts. I could have been out at a party with friends and I'd run off to the bathroom in order to check on the bets. I could have been at a dinner with my family and checking it under the table. One really common pattern right now with problem gamblers is because it's on your phone, you can do it from anywhere. Back in the day, you had to drive to the casino. Now, someone can roll over in bed in the morning, check their phone, and start spinning blackjack. The casino's in your pocket.
Rob, welcome.
Thank you for having me on.
What do you think kicked it off for you?
Growing up near the Philly area, there's always been a strong desire to watch sports. Every party centered around watching some kind of game. And I thought that the more I knew about sports, the more money I'd be able to make gambling on it when I became 18 and I saw the ads for daily fantasy sports.
Other than money, what was your payoff? What'd you get out of it?
It was really never about the money. It was always about proving that I was correct, proving that I was knowledgeable about something, and using this in a way that I thought was a skill. It was a way to prove my worth when I didn't feel like I was expressing it any other way.
Prove your worth to who? Was this a peer thing? Was it to yourself? What was it that drove this?
I believe it was to myself because outwardly to my peers, I was pretty successful. I was doing well in school, I did decent at sports, but it never felt like enough.
So this was a way to distinguish yourself further because you were smart, you could beat the odds, beat the game?
Absolutely. I knew from the start that I wasn't supposed to win, so it was a challenge.
Okay, did you know that? Did you know that you weren't supposed to win, that it's stacked against you? Just like when you go to a casino, it's stacked against you?
I knew that was the general rule, but I always thought that I would be the exception.
Do y'all get that with gambling, it's designed for you to lose? You buy lottery tickets, right? I mean, let's just be honest with each other. I mean, when you see $600 million or $1.3 billion, you think, can't win if you don't play, right? So you go buy a ticket. But you do understand the odds. Your chances are better that you would get hit by lightning on a clear day 3 times
Yes.
than win the lottery. But you go stand in line and buy the ticket anyway. And you know when you go to a casino and play blackjack or roulette or whatever, you're supposed to lose. They didn't build those big casinos based on games that you win. These fountains that go up and down to music and all these gold dome ceilings, they're not even hiding that they've got all your money. But you thought, I'm the one.
That's what I believed for entirely too long.
Yeah, but you weren't the one.
Definitely not.
How much weren't you the one? Was it enough that it disrupted your life?
Absolutely, 6 different times.
How did you justify this to yourself?
It was the kind of thing where I would think to myself that one big score fixes all the problems that have been previously caused. So no matter how bad it got, I felt as if I could always win my way out of the hole.
What was the turning point for you that you were able to get a handle on this?
The strongest turning point I had was when I went to a casino on November the 12th of 2022, and in one 12-hour sitting, I created enough debt for myself that it took me 6 months working 70 hours a week to pay it off. And reflecting on the fact that no matter what I tried across all those years, it always ended up going like this. I could try a different gambling strategy, I could try different amounts, and it always ended up spiraling. So I finally came to terms with that.
But why the 6th time instead of the 5th or the 12th? Why that time?
The velocity in the one 12-hour span I created that debt, where in other times it would take weeks or months maybe.
So this was accelerating for you.
Absolutely.
Finally, whoa, this is bad. All right, next, we're going to talk to a college sophomore who says it's hard to cut back on his gambling when he's bombarded with targeted gambling ads whenever he uses his phone. We'll be right back.
If you don't gamble responsibly, it can lead you down a dark hole with no money left, and that's a very hard hole to get out of.
My last bet, as soon as I walked into the casino, I knew what was gonna happen. I spent the next 12 hours on a gambling binge where I played every game in there, including still betting sports on my phone, but also spinning slots in the casino while also playing on my phone, playing poker. I used enough credit that it took me 6 months just to pay off the debt that I had made that day.
Tonight, we're talking about the surge in popularity and the pervasiveness of online gambling with young men. Now, Frank says he made his first bet last year as a freshman at college.
When I first got to college, I found sports gambling as a way to talk to my friends about sports in a deeper way. A lot of my friends and I were using apps to sports gamble. I remember my first bet. It was Thursday Night Football. It was the first game of the year. And I just downloaded a sports gambling app, put in 20 bucks. I'd live bet the Bills money line at halftime. I was scrolling through and I saw Mexican League Baseball. I placed $30 on it, which is a lot for me. I actually ended up winning. So I placed a couple more bets on Mexican League Baseball. The next 3 or 4 bets, all missed. I think that a lot of college students go into it for not only the money aspect, but to feel some sort of high, some sort of happiness after you hit a bet. My freshman year of college, when I would sit down with my friends to watch a game, I would bet on maybe 3 or 4 games a night. Turning point for me with sports betting was losing a couple $100. I can't go 3 scrolls on TikTok or 3 scrolls on Twitter or Instagram without seeing a sports gambling ad. You don't gamble responsibly, it can lead you down a dark hole with no money left, and that's a very hard hole to get out of, especially as a young college student.
Well, Frank, you're in college now, right?
Yes, I'm a sophomore.
And you say more than half of your friends use gambling apps, right?
Yes, yeah, I would say about 60% or so.
And what I was saying right before the break is that these ads bombard you on the phone, right?
Yes.
They're just in your feed, they're everywhere.
For sure.
And I said they don't place these ads because they don't work, they place them because they do work. And they do, correct?
100%, yeah.
What is it about them that tantalizes? Is it free bets in the beginning or bonus points like you were talking about to start with? What is it that's appealing about them?
I know personally I can't go 2 or 3 scrolls on an app without seeing an ad. They'll give you maybe a parlay that's 4 legs or so, and they're like, oh, look at these odds. This guy's to score this and that, get this assists. But they're juiced up odds, and it looks appealing at first. But when the app is building a bet for you to make, they're obviously banking on you losing, and that's what makes them the money. So I think it's definitely that.
Do they give you a favorable bet to start with that's easier to win to pull you in, or do they take your money right off the top? What's been y'all's experience with this?
In my experience, the promotions are often bets that just can't lose. They get you in there with a big win right away, usually 5 to win 200, and then you're stuck in.
What is it that got to you?
In college, it was very hard to sit down with my friends, either in my room or at dinner, or out with my friends. And, they'll all say, hey, I got this, I got that on the game. So I'm like, oh, I'll place one too. So I think that was kind of a big thing.
You bet on the color of Gatorade at the Super Bowl?
I did, yes. It was the color of the Gatorade that gets dumped on the coach, the winning coach.
Did you win?
I did not.
It's time to quit.
Yeah, that was a big point when I was like, all right, like if I'm betting on a Gatorade color, I have to stop. Like, right around then is when I really stopped gambling.
When was the last time you bet?
So I was at the Stars game the other night, and I bet on the Stars, and they won. So, but what I do is I only place bets when I'm home from college on a break, working with income coming in. I don't place a bet when I'm, say, at school, you know, spending money on other things, just so I don't lose any money that's not coming in.
Is that a justification or an admission? You say that like that's a good thing.
It's not, but it's not like
But you're still betting.
Occasionally, very occasionally, but it's $5 here and there.
You don't think it's a problem?
Not anymore.
Okay. So you have it under control?
Yes, 100%.
Nick, a high school and college gambler who now owns Dorm Room Degenerates, a site that sells sports betting tips, says gambling is purely business for him, and a lucrative one at that.
Sports betting is huge, especially on college campuses. By the time I graduated, you couldn't go to a party without people either watching sports and betting on them or talking about sports betting. It's literally everywhere. And then I saw people on social media who do this for a living. So I started doing it more and more and started to win. I bet 365 days a year, except for on Christmas. I don't have an itch to bet on sports. For me, it's strictly business. It's only to make money. I could stop tomorrow if I wanted to. I won't go to a casino. I won't play any games, no slots, blackjack, anything. I was literally just in Vegas. Didn't do anything other than bet on sports. I had a friend that was a computer genius, and he helped me build this computer algorithm that simulates each sporting event in all major sports 10,000 times. And then we sort of compare that to the sportsbook data to see if there's any discrepancies and where we could bet. We know for sure that we're gonna win long term. It's 100% certain because we have the data that backs it up.
Here she comes rolling down the driveway. And boys, this is paid for completely by sports betting. Don't let Vegas tell you you can't win. You absolutely can.
Last year, betting on sports, I made just over $300,000. And then with my personal brand, social media, and website with my subscribers, we pulled in over 6 figures as well. This has become my full-time job at 22 years old. Sports betting has absolutely changed my life for the better.
Nick, you've kind of become the house.
Yes, sir.
And this is an algorithm. For you, it's not gambling. They're gambling. You're running a business.
Yeah, for me, it's strictly business. Everything that I do with sports betting is not for enjoyment purposes. It's only to make money.
You were going to be an accountant.
Correct.
And so you've taken that approach to it. You model this computer-wise like 10,000 times on a potential bet, right?
Yeah, each game gets simulated 10,000 times, and then from there, the algorithm actually spits out what it projects to be the most accurate money line, spread, and total. We then compare that to what the sports books have as the line to see if there's any discrepancies. And we also do some other things. That's not the only thing we do, but
right.
That's the majority of it.
What is the chance of somebody looking at a game and saying, yeah, I think I'll do this, that, versus the science that goes into setting the line?
The average person over time is going to hit it about 50%. Same thing as a coin flip. As you know, if you flip a coin, you can get 10 heads in a row. But if you continue to do it, it's going to be closer to 50-50. With us, we hit about 55, 56%. And as long as you're over 52.4%, that's the break-even point in sports betting because they sort of have a tax on their bets. So as long as you're above that 52.4%, then you're a profitable sports bettor.
So you put a lot of money at risk.
Yes, sir.
For a 3 or 4% return.
Yep.
But that 3 or 4% return.
Well, it's actually higher than 3 or 4%. That's the percentage that we win above the break-even point, but our ROI sits between 9 and 11%.
And so to do that, you'll put several $100,000 at risk with a pretty good projection that you'll make 9 to 11%.
Absolutely, and it started small. I started as a $5 sports bettor with a $500 bankroll, And since then, it's grown to now I'm betting $3,500 a game.
And so now you're playing with house money.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't touch any of that money. I don't use that in my personal life. Whatever money I make, I put it back into my bankroll so that I can increase how much I'm betting per game and make even more. Eventually I'll pull it out, but I don't need it right now.
So the chance of building that kind of a bankroll, if you were just out there, just going down the list and picking them without that analysis and modeling.
Very difficult. You'd have better chances at making money in a bunch of different ways.
And those coin tosses that you do when you think 10 in a row, man, the next one's gotta be.
That's the gambler's fallacy.
Yeah, because each one's independent.
Exactly. Yep, just because there's 9 heads in a row doesn't mean the next one's gonna be tails.
When you see these big sports betting services and they say, hey, we paid out $9 million last week, isn't it true that the vast majority of that goes to very few people like you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the majority of winnings goes to a small share of individuals. I like to tell people I'm not smart enough to beat Vegas. The only thing that is a computer.
So even though they advertise we paid out $10 million last week, it goes to 2% of the people betting. The other 98% are paying you.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that it's that way because people would do a lot better if they knew how to bet properly. But unfortunately, the sports books, they like their money, so they push whatever's most profitable for them, which is parlays.
Are you surprised by any of this? The science of it, that there is a science.
Oh, sure. I mean, absolutely. I'm the first to admit that I'm a lousy gambler, but that doesn't disqualify, I think, that there is a health crisis. But I know that there's people that crunch numbers and do that sort of thing. That's not news to me, really.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and that's just not your approach, and it wasn't yours.
No, certainly not. I mean, there were different times where I would employ strategies, but overall, I'd never feel like I could say that I was a good gambler. But I really don't believe that anyone can.
Yeah.
I think very quickly, part of the appeal, most of the appeal for me was just that it was creating this sort of dream world, and I love the action and everything. I mean, I was not under the impression that I was skillful with it. It was just, I like this guy's, name in Bulgaria. I think he's cool. I want him to see him win, and it's given me the flow, the juices, so I'm going to bet on it. It was no more than that, but I think that sort of gambling does appeal to enough people where it is such a common problem. So.
Okay, we're going to add somebody to the conversation after the break, a gambling counselor who says he lost his law license, his home, and $2 million during his gambling addiction. We'll meet him after the break. Well, it's been 6 years since the Supreme Court struck down the federal sports betting ban. Now, this has spurred 38 states and Washington, D.C. to legalize it. Harry is a gambling addiction therapist and says he believes that historic ruling caused a public health emergency. Harry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.
When you talk about an emergency, we're talking about a lot of people that don't handle this very well.
People in America lost more than $100 billion with a B dollars to the gambling industry last year. And it's not just people who are ultimately diagnosed with addiction. Gambling causes harm not only to the person who struggles with gambling addiction, causes harm to their friends, their family, their community, their coworkers. And it's interesting that we talk about this as an addiction. Harm occurs well before someone reaches the point of addiction. So we don't have any idea how many people are suffering harm related to the growth of commercialized gambling. Other countries have looked at this from a public health model. The studies that have been done in Australia and Finland and the UK have shown that between 13 and 16% of the general population suffers harm related to gambling each year. If those numbers hold true in America, we're talking upwards of 70 million people a year suffering harm.
96% of the people that have a gambling addiction have some comorbid issue that goes with it, either OCD or impulse control disorder. It could be mood disorder, anxiety disorder. There are other things that go along with it. And so people know when we're talking about gambling addiction, it's characterized by an increasing preoccupation with gambling, a need to bet more money more frequently, like you were saying, it accelerated for you in a 12-hour situation. Restlessness or irritability when you're attempting to stop. Chasing losses. You bet more to close the gap, double up to catch up kind of thing. Loss of control manifested by a continuation of the gambling behavior despite mounting serious negative consequences. And the people will usually recognize this. It's not that they aren't aware of it or don't have insight to it. They realize, I'm having these issues, but I can't stop. There are actual structural changes in the brain. The amygdala being larger, the actual striatum of the brain changes. If you look at people with serious gambling addictions and you do an MRI on their brain versus somebody who doesn't have it, the brains are different. Have you looked at this?
It's not the dough, it's the dopamine. We have known for more than 12 years that gambling is an addictive product, just like opioids and heroin and tobacco. The impact on the human brain is exactly the same. And Dr. Phil, I applaud you for mentioning the chasing of losses, because that's really, from a public health perspective, what this is all about. The gambling industry business model, and I'm not opposed to gambling. I can't do it. I'm an addict in recovery. I'm coming up on the 10-year anniversary of my last bet and my suicide attempt related to gambling addiction. But I'm not opposed to it. What I am opposed to is a system that has been created in the last 6 years that is designed to deliver constant access to more and more and more action through in-game, what we call micro betting, using artificial intelligence to create these bets, online casinos offering 5, 6, 7 hands of blackjack at a time. If you take a known addictive product and you deliver it in rapid fashion on every phone, tablet, and computer without guardrails, you are going to cause harm. That's the business model. It's not a good nor a bad, it's a scientific reality. And many of the stories you've heard and the ones I hear from my patients are stories of pain and suffering, and there are ways we can prevent this. What I'm trying to do with my work, frankly, as a therapist, I'm trying to put myself out of business as a public health advocate. I'm not going to, but I'm going to try, because it's morally the right thing to do.
You got to follow the money. And you see all these states with lotteries, and most of the lottery money comes from those who can ill afford to be spending the money. And it's generating tremendous profit for the states. Call it what you want, but it's just another form of tax.
What I'm working for, along with my colleagues at the Public Health Advocacy Institute at Northeastern University, we're working for a federal approach. You're absolutely right, Dr. Phil. States cannot regulate themselves on this. It's the equivalent of the fox guarding the hen house. We need to have a national approach. And just think for a moment, if we had affordability checks, you've interviewed tonight some college students. I wonder, again, with my own patients, I have patients who are making $8.50 an hour, working 20 hours a week, and they're losing tens of thousands of dollars. How have we allowed a system where the gambling industry can take this action from people without doing anything to determine whether they can afford it? It makes no sense.
Of course it does. You got to follow the money. They're greedy bastards. So where is the line between hobby betting and problem gambling? We'll talk about that after the break. We're here talking about gambling, and we're particularly focusing on online gambling, sports betting, and college students, because there is a real epidemic going through our schools. And some of the universities are actually signing up with sports betting companies and giving them their mailing list so they can go straight into the inboxes of the students in the universities. Now, I got a problem with that, because they know of the vulnerability. And we were just talking about doing something on a federal level. I ain't big on getting the government into individuals' lives, telling them how they can spend their money. But I'm also not interested in creating programs that exploit those people and make it possible and easy to take their money from them, that you can divide, government keep half, and give half to the 1 or 2 people that may win now and then. I don't like thinking about coming up with programs where the government tells you how to spend your hard-earned money, where you can spend it and where you can't. That's up to you, but they certainly don't need to be creating sticky programs that allow you to spend money as a hidden tax. That bothers me. Does that bother you guys? I said, what's the difference between hobby betting and gambling problems? Look, you know, if you don't have money to spend and you reach those criteria that I listed on having a gambling problem, that's different than putting $5 in a pool at work once a month or on a game, something like that. Maybe you pick the right numbers or get assigned the right numbers. You can do that for fun versus gambling the rent money and having to hide. And you're not going to win enough money to change your lifestyle. You can certainly lose enough money to change your lifestyle. And you just got to think about that. I want to thank all of my guests for being here tonight. I know we've got some high school kids in the audience today. Think about it now. Don't go there. It's awfully enticing with your peers in college. It's real easy to say, nope, I don't do that. Good luck to you. I don't do it. I also want to thank you at home for watching. I'm thrilled you have found us here at Merit TV. Also, my book, We've Got Issues, How You Can Stand Strong for America's Soul and Sanity, everywhere books are sold. I believe this is the most important book that I have ever written because this country, I think, has got issues. And I say that in the same breath that I say I love this country. I love it enough to say we've got things we need to work on. And I think we have people trying to hijack the narrative in America, and we need to push back. We'll see you tomorrow night. Thanks. Thanks for being here, man. Good job.